Ramana Maharshi, the great sage, used to say that the ego is nothing but a shadow, the shadow of the self. As we listen to so much of the beautiful and really wonderful spiritual discourse that is out and available today on YouTube or in bookstores or anywhere you look for it, temples and churches, we often hear that the ego, in some ways, has been demonized. It's the fall guy, the bad guy, the source of problems. So I believe it is very important to remember that the ego is nothing but a shadow. A shadow is very much an illusion. Doesn't really have any power. Isn't really said to be anything. It's sort of a phenomena. The ego is just that, a phenomenon, floating in the mind. Buddhism will tell you that there is no self. Nothing has self. You are not a thing, you are not a person, you are not a self. You are flow, you are consciousness, you are spirit, you are beingness, awareness and love. But the mind likes to conjure up thoughts about itself and create a self, create a shadow, or a reflection of itself. And then we have the ego. Ramana Maharshi reminds us that the universal I, consciousness itself, God itself, assumes every form. All forms are manifestations, expressions of the One. So even the ego is a manifestation of the Absolute Supreme Self. There's only one source for all of life. So, before we start attacking the ego, we need to remember that the ego, in a sense, is a part of us. Even if it is false, untrue, even though it is an illusion, it's also a part of us, an expression of us. And this is why compassion is so important. We know how the witch trials went in Salem. We shouldn't have ego trials. For it is the ego that holds ego trials and witch trials. It would be the ego trying to destroy the ego. Just more violence, more illusion of otherness, more war, more conflict. I think you'll agree with me, this world needs no more conflict. It has plenty of conflict already. So what to do then about this ego? Well, my hope and intention is just by mentioning Ramana Maharshi's words, which are words expressed by the Absolute Truth. I may not be able to see that the ego is just an illusion, just a shadow, but I do trust. And that Ramana Maharshi or Nisargadatta Maharaj or even our modern day sages like Adyashanti or Gangaji or Muji, Eckhart Tolle. You see, we're all one. So when we hear truth, it resonates. A bell goes off. And we know, yes, that is true. Why do we know something is true? Because we are the truth itself. When we hear 2 + 2 is 4, it resonates. when we hear 2 plus 2 is 5, something inside says, no. So when we hear the great teachings from the great teachers, even when we hear parts of different scriptures from different religions, there's truth, of course, and something within us resonates, that aha experience. But it could be very well that you hear something like the ego is just a shadow, and maybe it resonates for you today, maybe it doesn't. But let's say it does. It could be that tomorrow it won't resonate for you. Or that today you sort of have a aha experience and tomorrow you don't. There's no reaction to it. Teachings are not ultimately the truth themselves. In Taoism they say the real Tao, the spoken Tao rather, is not the real Tao. If you can speak it, it's not it. Because the truth, the absolute supreme truth, is beyond the mind, and therefore beyond word and language. It expresses itself as word and language, but it can never really fully be described, because it's empty. It's a nothingness, and yet a fullness. So, people, religions, teachers, they use poetry, storytelling, koans, shock treatment sometimes, jokes, song, for sure song, music. They use all of these either abstract or sort of clever little sayings in order to penetrate through the mind, the logical mind, in order to speak to that which is within you, which already knows the truth because it is the truth. So, in Buddhism, compassion and understanding become the two major principles of the religion or philosophy, teaching. And the ego is not an enemy. If you go to war with the mind, you'll always be at war with the mind. That's what Adyashanti's teacher told him. If you go to war, you're at war. You're engaging in war. So again, it comes to a place of acceptance. It comes to that part, that process, that moment of accepting. Seeing what it is and what it's not. When you see, as Eckhart Tolle says, that the ego is just that which is unconscious within us, that which is still asleep. There's no negativity in that. It's like a person who's sleeping. There's nothing negative about that. They're just asleep. It's kind of beautiful. And gradually they wake up. And gradually all of us will wake up. It is our destiny. We cannot avoid who we are forever. All of us are waking up. Here and now. The truth is always ready, always present, always available. Namaste.